Coming up on a newscast tonight, a 55-year-old man believed to be one of the closest aide to the late Sewol-ho ferry owner turns himself in. He may hold the key to solving the mystery of Yoo Byung-eun's death. And time is against the candidates running for seats in the July 30th by-elections. With D-Day right around the corner, they continue to hit the streets and show no signs of slowing down. At 2061, it's Korea's benchmark KOSPI's highest closing mark since August 2011. Key contributing factor, strong foreign buying as the reluctance to buy Korean shares wanes. These and more, an early edition at 6.
I see trees of green, red roses.
늘 남편 먼저,
I see them
늘 자식 먼저.
for me and
레이디 퍼스트라는 말을 믿고 살아온 당신. 오늘만큼은 세상 누구보다 당신이 먼저입니다. 한 분 한 분 특별하게 모시겠습니다.
Excellence in Flight, Korean Air.
It is 5 a.m. in New York, 10 in Algiers, and 6 p.m. on Tuesday, the 29th of July here. Live from Seoul, I'm Moon Gon-young.
And I'm Daniel Chen. Thank you for joining us. We begin with the latest development in investigation into April's ferry disaster.
Well, it looks like things are beginning to pick up steam. The latest we know is that a very close aide to the now deceased owner of the ferry has turned himself in to authorities after weeks of the run.
Yang Hye-jung is the last of those suspected of helping Yoo Byung-eun evade the authorities to be brought under custody.
Our prosecutors believe he could hold the key to finding out what Korea's most wanted man was doing in the weeks, days, and even hours before his mysterious death. Our Connie Lee starts us off.
After 2 months of being on the run, 55-year-old Yang Hye-jung, described as one of the closest aides to the deceased owner of the sunken Sewol-ho ferry, has turned himself in. Yang appeared at the Incheon District Prosecutor's office this Tuesday morning and now faces charges of helping Yoo Byung-eun evade authorities. Yang, who also worked as a driver for Yoo, was last seen at the end of May on the surveillance camera in Suncheon, southern Korea, the same city where Yoo was found dead, and around the same time Yoo is believed to have died. Authorities believe Yang holds answers to what Yoo Byung-eun was doing right before he passed away. Yang's surrender comes 1 day after his wife and another close aide to Yoo Byung-eun turned themselves in, and a few days after Yoo's eldest son was arrested. Yoo's younger son still remains at large. The hunt for the Yoo family is all in the name of finding the exact cause of the deadly ferry accident that killed more than 300 people. Even President Park Geun-hye has said the Yoo Byung-eun family was a root cause of the disaster. However, the real causes of the accident are still unclear. Lawmakers at the National Assembly, because of partisan differences, have not been able to pass a bill aimed at coming up with the real answers of what made the ferry sink on April 16th. Connie Lee, Arirang News.
Well, as you can see, the probe into April's deadly ferry accident has many dimensions. Prosecutors in Gwangju near the accident site have been investigating the Coast Guard's actions in the morning of the disaster.
And on Tuesday, they arrested the captain of a patrol boat that was tasked with saving lives from the ferry. The first such arrest of a Coast Guard official in the ongoing investigation. Here's our Park Ji-won.
Prosecutors arrested the captain of a Coast Guard patrol boat that was tasked with saving lives from the then sinking Sewol-ho ferry in mid-April. The Gwangju District Prosecutor's Office, which has been probing the Coast Guard on the Sewol-ho ferry disaster, arrested the 53-year-old official, identified only by his family name Kim, on Tuesday. Kim was the chief of the Mokpo Coast Guard's patrol boat at the time of the disaster and is alleged to have ripped off official work records and fabricated new records that same day. The prosecution suspects he did so to cover up errors committed by the Coast Guard in its initial response to the ferry disaster. if he's found to be responsible for the failed rescue operation, during which only victims who were in the water were saved. Prosecutors say they would consider charging Kim with negligent homicide. It's the first time authorities have taken into custody a Coast Guard official who was engaged in rescue operations at the disaster scene, and comes amid mounting criticism of the maritime agency. Student survivors of the accident providing testimony in court on Tuesday against the sunken ferry's captain and crew members said there appeared to be more fishermen involved in the rescue operation than Coast Guard officials. They told a panel of judges they want those responsible within the Coast Guard to be punished severely. Sewol-ho Captain Lee Jun-seok and 14 of his crew are currently on trial, accused of charges ranging from negligence to homicide. Park Ji-won, Arirang News.
The largest by-election in Korea's history is just one day away. And to drum up support, candidates hit the campaign trail running this morning. Our Yoo Byung-eun has this report.
Candidates in Wednesday's by-elections have just one more day to appeal to voters on the campaign trail, and the rival parties are leaving nothing to chance. They'll be out all day shaking hands and rallying up support, particularly in the races in Seoul and Gyeonggi-do province, which are neck and neck.
5 candidates are running for seats in Gyeonggi-do province. We're showing the people that we want all our candidates to be elected.
I've been eating and sleeping here in Seoul's Dongjak district and in the city of Suwon. That is why I wasn't able to attend some party meetings.
The opposition candidate has been boosted in Seoul's Dongjak district and 2 constituencies in Suwon, Gyeonggi-do province, after unifying under one candidate. The Conservative Party has attacked the move as political collusion, but the main opposition party and the minor opposition, Justice Party, claim the alliances were formed by the candidates on their own accord. For both rival parties, the stakes in the by-election are high. A positive outcome for the Saenuri Party would provide a further boost for newly elected chairman Kim Moo-sung, while a win for the main opposition party would do the same for co-chairs Kim Han-gil and An Chol-soo, who have led the party since forming it in March. A loss would have the opposite effect for the duo. They handpicked the candidates in many of the race's more important districts, generating criticism inside and out of the party. A total of 15 parliamentary seats are up for grabs in Wednesday's by-election, with the Saenuri Party already holding 147 spots in the 300-seat parliament. The opposition hopes to minimize ruling party gains. Yoo Byung-eun, Arirang News.
Meanwhile, Korea's main stock market soared for a third straight trading day on this Tuesday, closing the day at a 3-year high. And that's thanks largely to strong foreign buying. Arirang News' Kim Ji-yeon has analysis of the local bourse in recent days.
Korea's benchmark KOSPI peaked on Tuesday to end at 2,061, its highest closing mark since August 2011. The rise was mainly due to strong foreign buying. Foreign investors have bought almost $550 million worth of Korean shares over the past week, as their reluctance to buy Korean shares has somewhat waned. Up until now, foreign investors were reluctant to buy Korean shares due to the country's heavy reliance on the Chinese economy and uncertainties over Korea's economic policy direction. China recorded growth of 7.5% in the second quarter of this year, up 0.1 percentage point from the previous quarter, buoyed by stimulus measures from Beijing.
The Chinese economy seems to be starting to recover from its down cycle of less than 8% growth in recent months. But the main trigger has been Korea's new economic team, led by Finance Minister Choi Kyung-hwan, and the stimulus measures to revitalize the economy.
Despite the record-breaking gains, Korean stocks recorded the lowest price gains compared to 6 other emerging markets in Asia. The KOSPI has risen less than 2% this year, a stark contrast to India's 23% and Taiwan's near 10% rise. Kim Ji-yeon, Arirang News.
Korea logged a current account surplus for the 28th straight month in June. The Bank of Korea said Tuesday the total came to slightly over $7.9 billion last month. That pushed the current account balance for the first half of the year to an all-time high of $39.2 billion, a 25% increase year on year. The nation's current account balance has been in the black since March 2012, the second longest stretch since 38 consecutive months posted in the late 1980s. Exports of display panels and semiconductors both rose more than 10% in June from a year earlier. Korea's business sentiment is forecast to hit a 6-month low in August. The Federation of Korean Industry says Korea's 600 biggest companies by sales are disappointed by the sluggish rate of economic recovery and unstable consumer sentiment. The business survey index rebounded after February but started on a downward trend following the ferry disaster in April. The Federation attributes the fall to the frail economic indices, including the second quarter growth rate, which hit a 7-quarter low, and a 15-month low consumer sentiment index in July.
Digging deeper, getting to the bottom of stories that impact your life, talking with you on air and online, connecting you with experts on the world's most pressing issues. News and current affairs at its best with Moon Gon-young and Daniel Che on Early Edition at 6.
Well, North Korea has been of late making more threats towards its archenemy, the United States. Pyongyang says it'll launch a nuclear attack on Washington and U.S. military bases if it ever feels threatened. The U.S. government, however, barely gave it any attention, saying it would be better for North Korea to try a more peaceful tact next time around. Yoo Byung-eun reports.
When asked about North Korea's recent threat to drop a nuclear bomb on the White House, the U.S. State Department fell short from providing a detailed answer.
I had not actually seen that report with everything going on. I think it's fair to say that that kind of inflammatory rhetoric is not a way to move towards a place in the world.
The White House also declined to comment on Pyongyang's threat made during a large rally on Sunday by North Korea's top military official who accused Washington of raising tensions on the peninsula.
Our military will launch nuclear-armed rockets towards the White House and U.S. military bases.
The latest threat comes amid criticism within the U.S. of the Obama administration's approach toward Pyongyang. It centers around strategic patience and holding off on direct talks with the North Korean regime until concrete steps to denuclearize are taken. But North Korea appears to be hunkering down.
By mentioning the possibility of nuclear war, North Korea wants to show it will not be dragged around by the U.S. Instead of showing North Korea's nuclear capabilities, this shows it's frustrated that the nuclear issue is not being addressed or resolved.
Former U.S. State Department official Joel Witt also told the Joseonilbo on Monday that leaving North Korea alone over the past 6 years has been a mistake. He said it's time the U.S. open up high-level dialogue channels with Pyongyang. Witt also warned of North Korea's growing military threats, saying it will most likely finish preparations by the end of the year on a rocket more powerful than the Eunha-3 rocket that was test-fired 2 years ago. Yoo Byung-eun, Arirang News.
The United Nations has made another move that is sure to enrage North Korea. The U.S. Security Council Sanctions Committee on late Monday voted to blacklist the operator of a North Korean ship seized last year in the Panama Canal, trying to smuggle military hardware out of Cuba. Pyongyang-based Ocean Maritime Management is also subject to an international asset freeze and travel ban. The company's Cheongcheongang ship was stopped by Panamanian authorities last July on suspicion of smuggling drugs. What investigators found instead was a trove of military equipment ranging from 2 Soviet-era MiG-21 fighters and missiles to air defense systems hidden under sacks of sugar. U.S. sanctions imposed following nuclear threats or tests in 2006 and 2009 prohibit almost all arms exports to North Korea. And speaking of sanctions, it looks like more of those are headed Russia's way this week, as the U.S. and EU are now certain that Moscow is providing weapons to the separatists that shot down Malaysia Airlines Flight 17. Discussions for the revved-up sanctions also come as pro-Russian rebels blocked international experts and police from the crash site for the third day in a row. Now, leaders are hoping for results by pumping up the pressure on Russia. Song Ji-sun reports.
The leaders of the United States and a handful of European nations have made clear their determination to act against Russia. Following a conference call on Monday, U.S. President Barack Obama, German Chancellor Angela Merkel, French President François Hollande, British Prime Minister David Cameron, and Italian Prime Minister Matteo Renzi agreed to place additional, as yet unspecified, sanctions on the Russian economy this week. Western leaders are increasingly certain that Russian President Vladimir Putin has strong links to downing of Malaysia Airlines Flight 17 due to his support for pro-Russian separatists in eastern Ukraine. The leaders also call for unrestricted access to the MH17 crash site. Washington says its intel shows Moscow is continuing to transfer heavy weaponry and fighters across the border to aid pro-Russian separatists and has stationed Russian troops near the border in possible preparation for a further incursion into Ukraine. European leaders made clear last week that they were willing to target financial, defense, and energy sectors of Russia's economy, but some European countries remain wary of backing new measures that could restrict trade across entire industries and hurt the European economy. Song Ji-sun, Arirang News.
Moving on to other stories, Korea and Japan plan to resume talks early next month on fishing inside their respective exclusive economic zones. A high-level official at Korea's Fisheries Ministry says Seoul has requested Tokyo to ease restrictions on hairtail fishing within the Japanese zone and to increase the amount of allowed hairtail catch from the current 2,100 tons to 8,000 tons. Tokyo, on the other hand, wants a permanent permission for its recently enlarged mackerel fishing boats to operate within Korea's EEZ. Negotiations for the 12-month fishing season starts this July were halted without an agreement in late June, forcing fishermen from both sides to retreat to their respective waters. And South Korea announced back in March that it had selected Lockheed Martin's F-35 as its next-generation fighter. Concerns were raised over the jet's safety and performance. The voices of dissent have only strengthened in the 4 months since. A New York Times editorial published Monday said the F-35 has experienced several technical problems since development began 14 years ago. Most recently, an engine failure at an Air Force base in Florida last month. The Daily sided with experts to say it would be sensible for the U.S. to either buy fewer F-35s or halt purchases altogether until operational testing is completed in 2019. South Korea announced in March that it would buy 40 of Lockheed Martin's F-35s in the coming years at an expected cost of nearly $6.8 billion.
Well, believe it or not, the monsoon season is pretty much behind us now in Korea. And believe it or not, because we didn't get much rain. And now we have to get ready for the intense summer heat over the next few weeks.
Well, most summers, an unusual fierce heat wave will last a maximum of 1 week in Korea. But experts warn global warming may them much longer, and the effects could be disastrous. Here's our Kim Min-ji with this story.
It's very hot and humid compared to before, and there are a lot of tropical nights.
It has gotten much hotter. I visit Busan regularly, and it's the same down there. I can feel the humidity. Levels are high.
In Korea, heat wave warnings are issued when temperatures exceed 33 degrees Celsius for 2 straight days. Usually a heat wave lasts for 10 days on average in Korea, but experts warn that period could get much longer in the coming years. The Natural Disaster Management Institute says heat waves could last for at least 1 month by 2020, which could potentially lead to the death of thousands of people. Here's a possible scenario. During the first week, the heat will cause droughts, and in the second, the first fatalities will be reported. As the week progresses, the number of people succumbing to the heat will rise, and the prices of agricultural and farming products will surge. Into the fourth week, temperatures could rise above 40 degrees Celsius.
threatening the lives of some 10,000 people. Transportation could also be disrupted as tires are liable to explode and railway tracks can bend and buckle. In fact, in 1994, when the heat wave lasted for 30 days, over 3,000 more people died than average, and there were blackouts and a shortage of drinking water. Experts warn the damage could be worse now.
We will see problems in the farming sector due to a lack of water. In the manufacturing sector, power shortages will reduce the number of working days, which will hurt the economy overall.
The institute warns heat waves could linger for up to 50 days in 2050, but by then it could be too late to reverse the effects of global warming. 김민지, Arirang News.
And so, of course, global warming, it comes with health hazards, but also with financial cost as well. If Korean companies continue to pollute the environment at their current levels, they'll be forced to cough up a combined $2.2 billion in penalties by the year 2020.
Well, that's the projection from local firms aime Investment and Securities, which estimated 1 ton of emissions totaling around $100. The government is instituting a carbon emissions trading system in January with hopes of cutting down greenhouse gases to 30% below their current levels by the year 2020.
Well, currently 38 countries, including Switzerland and New Zealand, have adopted similar measures. Well, for those of you McDonald's lovers in China, no more of those Big Macs and chicken nuggets for you, at least for the time being, because a U.S.-based meat supplier OSI Group is withdrawing all products manufactured by its embattled Shanghai unit from the marketplace, and this in a move to control damage that has in recent days hit fast food companies across China, in Hong Kong, and in Japan.
That's right. A TV report had accused of and showed the U.S.-based company's subsidiary, Shanghai Husi Food, of internationally selling meat beyond its shelf life to restaurant companies, causing an uproar from the fast food chains they service. OSI Group said the food safety scandal was absolutely inconsistent with the group's standards and promised to review all of its China plans.
Like we said earlier, I think monsoon season is just about done for us here in Korea, and it's very hot and sunny in the nation's capital. Although, I wonder if there's that one last bit of monsoon rain in the forecast for at least some parts of this country. As you know, I love rain.
Well, for some answers, let's turn to our Michelle Bach at the Weather Center for a look at what's in store for us. Michelle, is the rain going to cool things down at all?
Well, yes and no, Daniel. The monsoon season is just about over, like Kan-young said, and we've only had about half of the rain that we had last year. Now, but sudden showers are in the forecast tomorrow for some regions, including Seoul, and throughout the whole week. And so make sure you have your umbrellas handy. And it's well past 6 in the evening now here in Korea, but temperatures are still high, and Seoul is lingering in the 30s, and the sun is still shining down along with some high UV levels. And in these conditions, it can just take about 20 minutes to get a sunburn, so applying sunburn is a must if you're going outside for any time of period. Now going over to our temperature readings, Seoul will top out at Wednesday morning at 23 and over to 32 in the afternoon. Meanwhile, the southern cities such as Daegu and Busan will peak up to 34 and 31 degrees. Now moving over to other regions, Jeju-Hwanan tops over to 30 as well. Dokdo hits 28, while Mangkungang tops to 26. Well, that's all for Korea, and here's a look at the weather conditions around the world.
Well, that's all we could squeeze into this newscast. Thank you for watching. For our viewers in Korea, have a wonderful rest of the evening. This has been Daniel Tran.
And I'm Moon Gan-young. To those of you in other parts of the world, have a great start to your day. And we hope to see you right back here, same time tomorrow. Bye-bye.